Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Oh,
Hey man, now if it looks a bit different in my end of the camera, it's because I'm at my parents' in my parents' garage at the minute, so that's why it looks a bit weird. I've decided to switch it up and use their computer because I've seen a few of the comments about my end of the video, and it has been quite laggy, definitely. So hopefully it's a bit more crisp, a bit more clearer for you guys, and hopefully the audio is okay as well.
I mean,
Fingers
my
crossed.
visual's not too great either. I'm in my little box.
I like it though. I think your room makes for a very, very good background. But yeah, hopefully the visual difference isn't too much of a setback or a put off for you guys, hopefully. But nevertheless, we're back with another podcast, which will probably, I think this will probably be our 101st. So yeah, into the triple digits now, and we're going back to our bread and butter of superhero comic book films. And it's of course the latest DC release, the Suicide Squad. So I'll pass over to Callum to explain the gist of this film, how it differs from the one we reviewed a couple of years ago in our DC review, and the breakdown of our discussion. So yeah, off to you, bro.
So this film centers around Task Force X being reassembled to this time enter Corto Maltese, an island in South America, I believe. From memory, we did see this about a week ago. We decided to hold off the review because the international release was very odd for this film. I've never really seen, in the last 5 years, us get a movie a week earlier than America. So it was a very weird change of pace. So if we get some details wrong about the film, that's why. But the Suicide Squad are sent to destroy every remnant of a project called Project Starfish. We'll leave the rest to the spoiler section. But I'll arrange my thoughts in non-spoiler and spoiler. This film's a bit different to the 2016 film. It sort of acts as a soft reboot of the universe. With the constant failures of the DCEU, they seem to have abandoned essentially all sense of continuity. They're presumably going to bring that together in The Flash, where they suggest that each film takes place in its own universe, or certain pocket universes in different parts of the universe. I mean, it's essentially become the X-Men universe at this point, where you vaguely remember the last film and it's roughly similar. If you omit a few details that make the continuity not line up, it pretty much tracks. So continuity here has become a bit of a headache, but I think just prioritize making good films, which I think is exactly what they've done here.
Yeah, in ways I think it's helped the franchise, to be honest, because I think if a lot of the criticism in the early days was that they're trying to catch up with Marvel, where now they're doing more self-contained stories with more creative vision and a better focus. And I actually, to be fair, I can't really think of a real stinker that the DCU's put out. Like a major one in recent, like I liked Birds of Prey. We were talking about that before we came on the show today. Aquaman I thought was okay. Wonder Woman 84 I really liked. So I think they're
Well,
doing better
Matthew,
now.
this week I made the stupid decision of rewatching Suicide Squad
Okay,
after
alrighty.
having seen this film, which is, I mean, it's a ridiculous decision. It took me 2 days to watch the film.
I see.
In two halves. It's poor. It's quite bad, Matthew. I remembered it as a bit of fun. There's sort of no fun to be had.
Mhm.
I rewatched it in light of like David Ayer's comments about his cut of the film, and how it was this dramatic masterpiece. And you watch it and you're like, maybe there's something good in here. I think in his original concepts, where the Enchantress, instead of like building a machine to destroy all the humans and resurrecting her brother Incubus, instead she was under the control of a mother box and she's summoning Steppenwolf. I think that's a great idea. But David Ayer's uh, if David Ayer's cut is just a cleaned up, better version of the movie we saw, it's still probably shit. Definitely better, but probably still shit. Uh, you know, the music is awful. The music is incredible, but it's so poorly placed and so constant. They
Feels
play
like a
about
music video.
yeah, they play about 30 seconds of each song with no break in between, and it's all just as David Ayer called them, radio tunes. which I mean, it like they're just not appropriate for the scenes that they're used in. And like the editing is just an absolute hack job. Like it was difficult to watch at points.
Yeah, and luckily I don't think that's the case for this film. That's, obviously James Gunn directed this one. For anyone who doesn't know, he directed the Guardians films as well, Guardians of the Galaxy. So there's definitely that obvious, the comparison between them is obvious. But I think, and I think we'll definitely bring that up in the review. But I think this film is just so much better in almost every way, to be honest with you, bro. Um, so yeah, just before we begin our non-spoiler thoughts, thank you very much for everyone who supported us recently. I know Calum and I really do appreciate that loads. And yeah, we'll be doing our sort of part 3 of our sort of 100th episode spectacular with Who Knows Who Best in person very soon. So looking forward to that, and there's loads of other content coming up for you guys too, as well. So Timecodes, email, iTunes link, you guys know the drill. That's in the description. But Cal, mate, do you want to start us off with your non-spoiler thoughts on the film?
Yeah, everything I have to say in the non-spoiler is positive.
Oh yeah.
One or two negatives creep into the spoiler, but right from here, everything's positive.
Okay.
You know, well, there's something I wanted to put forward to you. There's something very interesting in the way this movie is filmed. It's sort of filmed like an episode of The Office, where it has like a lot of handheld moments and
Zoomed in
zooms.
moments. Yeah,
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 even in fight scenes, which is incredibly unorthodox, and I haven't really settled on an opinion on it. And
yeah.
I
I had
think
the
because
exact
it's
same thing.
so weird and different, I think I like it.
I think I like it as well. In a way, it sort of felt like it was a documentary is being filmed on this sort of team of villains, or anti-heroes rather. It really feels quite strange. It's weird because I don't think I've ever seen James Gunn use that in any of the Guardians of the Galaxy films. So it seems like a creative idea and method that he's kind of brought forward for this. And I kind of liked it. It felt unique. The movie has a clear sort of unique vibe to it anyway. You've got like not title cards on the screen, but you've got, visual sort of visual text on the screen. And it is interesting. There's a lot of visual humor here, as well, rather than just, telling jokes. There is just a lot of visual humor, which I thought was really, really well done. Not all of them land, but for the most part, I think the film is quite funny.
Yeah, you pointed to similarity with Guardians of the Galaxy, but in reality, it is very similar to another film they directed, Super. Thankfully, it omitted some of the darker parts of that film, and instead embraced more the lighthearted side of that, because that film's brutal. But there are a lot of shades of that here. I mentioned the music in the 2016 version of Suicide Squad. Here, they're also playing sort of pop music, none that I recognized. But I thought perfectly matched up with the scenes. I wonder if we rewatch this, and I'll think completely differently. If we rewatch this and go, that was awkwardly shoehorned in, I hate that. I'm curious.
Yeah, I can definitely see why James Gunn's films wouldn't be for everyone. Certainly the humor or the music tropes as well. And I do think for me this film feels so different from the previous Suicide Squad, where you can definitely tell there's someone very different behind the camera there. And one thing I would say as well about the older Suicide Squad, the 2016 David Ayer uh, film. Um, I remember coming out of the cinema and actually really liking it at the time, but looking back now, my feelings definitely don't resonate with that. So I'd be interested to see with this one. I had the same opinion. I really liked it when I watched it a week ago, and I'd be interested in a year or two down the line. Do I still feel the same? Because contrary to the other one, I feel like this one is more consistent. Whereas I can acknowledge how stupid it is. Like it's so much more ridiculous than the previous one. It's not even on the scale, but I think that somehow just works and adds to the charm, to be honest.
Yeah, because I mean the characters have always been ridiculous. So if you take these characters and
Yeah,
play them so earnestly, sometimes it just doesn't work.
yeah,
We mentioned this with M. Night Shyamalan's Old, where it's a very ridiculous premise, ridiculous execution. They
sure.
play so earnestly, and there, whether unintentional or not, it's funny and it works. But in 2016 Suicide Squad, you have Killer Croc, and you have you know this crew of ridiculous characters, and they're just playing it too seriously.
Yeah.
You know, but here, you know, really the Suicide Squad films should be, you know, action films or war films, and this film at heart is a war film. You know, that's where James Gunn drew inspiration, which you can tell most evidently in the opening, which I think is, well, one of the best movie openings of all time. Again, my opinion may change this film, but I thought it was absolutely incredible. But the first Suicide Squad is just, it's just bizarre. Like it's taking itself so seriously, but it's just this bizarre. Like how, like when did you last watch it?
Probably, I can't really put a finger on it. Probably like 2018. Yeah, about 3 years ago.
Because
Yeah.
like I would say about 40% of it is just them walking the streets having this like soulless banter, and it's
Yeah,
just
it's just
it's
forgettable.
so dreadful. I'll be honest. Like, you know, I would say the first half of it is incredibly drawn out, but it's somewhat likable. You know, it has redeemable elements. But the second half of it, you know, when they get into Midway City, is just, it's just dreadful.
Yeah, and I think what this film does really well, it takes sort of the best characters from that film and brings them over here for the most part. There's a few
Hmm.
exceptions. I was one of the, I think one of the few people who actually really liked Will Smith as Deadshot.
Hmm.
And they kind of do a copy and paste of that character here completely, with Bloodsport. I know a lot of my points relating to Bloodsport actually almost for spoilers, so I'll get back to him later on. But I think, you know, obviously Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn's the main one, and then Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag, which I actually think he is much improved. He's probably the most improved character from that original film. Obviously Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang makes an appearance here, but he's fairly the same. So I actually think, you know, Joel Kinnaman got a lot of criticism, I think, for his performance in the previous one, but I think here he's real quality, honestly.
Yeah, you know, I think his line delivery seemed poor in the first film, but I honestly think that was you know, potentially just really bad ADR, you know, overdubbing. Like I think it was just, you know, uh
Yeah.
poor audio in the
Mhm.
reshoots rather
Sure.
than his actual performance. But yeah, here the characters are night and day. Like, you know, it's not even recognizable as the same character. You
Million
know, at least
percent.
this one is incredibly likable. And you mentioned Jai Courtney. Did it sound to you like he was doing an incredibly fake accent? Because obviously he is Australian and he's playing in Australian, but it just seemed like he was really hamming it up. Like, do you think that was James Gunn's influence being like, turn it up to an
Dial it up to
11?
11. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny because uh, I actually I remember when he, you know, the first Suicide Squad came out, like he actually really surprised me in that film. I thought it was actually really good, and here he doesn't have as much to do, but I think I don't know. I part of me forgot he was actually Australian there for a second, and then I remembered, oh yeah, he is. So, you know, why is this accent so um you know, so exacerbated or so like over exaggerated? You know, it's bizarre. It's weird.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a creative choice. I don't
if
know.
you guys don't want any spoilers, but you want to know what I'm talking about, that there's a clip out there on YouTube where they're talking about Weasel, and you know they're discussing what kind of breed of dog he might be. If you want to see what I'm talking about, go check out that clip. You know, this film essentially acts as a soft reboot of the Suicide Squad, even in the in my opinion, lazy title. Uh, Mm, do you think the title is, do you think it's lazy, or do you think it's like asserting its dominance, like it's, you know,
The
saying
Suicide Squad.
we're the definitive one?
Um, I, I, I don't really mind the title, to be honest, but I think I actually wouldn't have mind something like, you know, Task Force X or something like that, or
Yeah.
something a bit different, because I think as a general marketing idea, it's a very poor one, because a lot of casual moviegoers are just going to get the movies so confused because there's no real connectivity there apart from, Harley Quinn, Amanda Waller, those kind of characters. So I think marketing wise, it's maybe not the best idea, but um, hey, I don't personally have a problem with it. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like they are just trying to override the original, which I mean, you know, you
Yeah,
just do that by making it a better film, you know. But I think the title just doesn't come across great. I mean, it doesn't even sound great, you know. It's just going to confuse more people. But you know, I find this incredibly viewer friendly. You know, in my opinion, you in no way need to have seen the first film. You know, and
yeah,
you
agreed.
perfectly understand the situation within minutes. You know, even in the opening sequence, you know, they've already established what Task Force X is, and you know they're already on a mission where you know it took 50 minutes to assemble them in the first film. So I mean,
Yeah, the opening's
it is
great.
it is incredibly different, but it's so easy to understand.
Yeah, agreed. The opening here is fantastic, like you said, bro. And to be honest with you, I actually feel, um, yeah, like, this film does get right into it from the get-go. There's a bit of a bizarre sort of character point of view, which we'll point out in our spoiler section for sure. But I think this film takes what the first film did good and just makes it better here, to be honest with you. And I think it's a film where, anyone can really enjoy it. I think it can work as like as a family night out or whatever, or on your own or with your mates or with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, whatever. Like I think it really works for just whatever. It's got a reasonably diverse to like cast in terms of age, where like a lot of different age groups could enjoy it. Idris Elba, Margot Robbie, those kind of names. So I definitely feel like this film's going to smash the box office, mates, despite COVID or whatever. I think it's going to really, really do well.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Who was your cast standout for this film?
It's funny you say that because what one of my cast standouts is actually a CGI character, and
Oh,
it's Sylvester Stallone as King Shark was personally my favorite in the film. Again, my points relating to him are in spoilers, but I feel like the marketing didn't really do the film justice in a sense. It almost did the opposite of what the first Suicide Squad did, where it had a great trailer, but a letdown of a film. Whereas I feel the marketing for the film had all the worst jokes in the film,
hmm.
but in the trailer, and I think King Shark maybe got done a bit dirty there. I think in this actual film, he's fantastic. Sylvester Stallone's really funny. And I expected John Cena to be, the source of humor in the film, but it is more, King Shark and Weasel have that the CGI characters at play there have the more humorous notes of the film. So yeah, King Shark and Weasel probably my choices. What about you, bro?
I mean, my favorite was Danielle Melchior as Ratcatcher 2.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a
James
great
Gunn
shout.
described her as the heart of the film, and I think that absolutely is the truth.
Definitely.
You know, just where Zack Snyder describes Cyborg as the heart of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think that's very much
Yeah,
in the same bin here, where there's a lot of humanity brought to this character that has a sort of monstrous element, I suppose. You know,
yeah,
where you know, Cyborg was this sort of Frankenstein's monster. The rat catchers, this person who's in control of this sort of stigmatized group of
yeah.
animals. And that sort of comes into play within the film. And she's a lot more important than I thought she was going to be. And she was just my favorite character within the whole film.
Completely. I can see why. She's fantastic. And it's weird because I think with these DC movies that Margot Robbie is in and has like a producer role, I'm not sure if she has a producer role here, but I know she did with Birds of Prey. I feel like a lot of people go into it expecting her to be the standout. And don't get me wrong, Margot Robbie is fantastic. Like I really like her. But I can't help but feel other characters stole the show from Harley Quinn here. Harley Quinn's the real selling point for these films, I believe. Certainly when people realize like how popular the character is, the character's got a
Mm-hmm.
huge demographic all over the world. It's what she's one of the more popular characters I would say at the minute. I just can't help but feel that although Margot Robbie is great, other characters stole the show for me, like Ratcatcher, like King Shark, or even for me, I thought Idris Elba's Bloodsport was really, really good as well. Idris Elba maybe doesn't have the range of maybe a Margot Robbie is in terms of a lot of his roles are the same, but I thought he was really, really good here. Certainly, he holds his own compared to Will Smith as Deadshot, I thought. But yeah, that's I don't know if that's a hot take in regards to Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I still think she was excellent. It's just that I didn't feel like she was the star, the highlight for me for a change.
Yeah, I think Idris Elba was boxed in a little with the dialogue.
Yeah,
He's
that's
a bit
fair.
monosyllabic. When it comes to sort of reactions to other people's comments.
Mhm.
But yeah, when it comes to Harley Quinn, I think she's the most mass marketable character. She varies in style so much in the comics that whenever a new project comes out, people are very keen to see, what they do with the character visually, and character development wise. And here, they don't do anything hugely different with her. I think she's probably more likable than she was in the first film, and but it is a very different character than we saw in Birds of Prey. And I think some people would take issue with how she's portrayed here. Pretty much every opinion I've heard about how she's portrayed in this film is negative. But I think her her costume is great throughout.
Yeah, agreed.
Her opening combat suit, and her dress in the third act of the film. So I thought if you're looking at it from a comic book adaptation sense, and color scheme, I thought she was very well realized. But I do think a lot of people are going to take issue with how she's portrayed in this film.
Yeah, this film really leans into the classic comic book looks of characters, which I think as a whole, both Marvel and DC are really going for that now these days. We've seen that, certainly, with a lot of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and WandaVision spring to mind for me there particularly. But here, all the characters are so vibrant, so sort of stand out there in your face. Like it's fantastic. Every character looks exactly how they look from the comic books, which is good. I also like a realistic look. One that springs to mind for me is Captain America the Winter Soldier does a realistic look really well. But it goes to show you, like, vibrant, colorful costumes can work too. A lot of people say, oh, they can't, this color doesn't look good on screen or whatever. I think generally speaking, all the costumes here look good. They're not supposed to look fashion catwalk level. They're supposed to look ridiculous, but I think Peacemaker looks fantastic. And as I say, yeah, Harley
John
Quinn's.
Cena never seems to be out of that suit. Like he's doing every interview in the
Yeah,
Peacemaker costume.
yeah, I know. He's a real enigma, is John Cena. But yeah, I mean, I think Harley Quinn is another one. The costume is fantastic, and Bloodsports is the only one where it's a little bit sort of military tactical gear. It's a bit cliche, but still, I thought the way he has weapons and stuff he can use on his suit was still really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I think some people are going to take issue with the hyper violence.
Yeah,
There was a lot of controversy in the UK because it was rated a 15, where a lot of people thought it deserved an 18. I mean, I completely disagree.
I agree.
I
Disagree.
I didn't think anything about the violence was any worse than Deadpool. I thought a lot of the kills were incredible. Because I'm sort of not, a lot of people look at it like, oh, you enjoy the violence in a film, you enjoy violence, or you're desensitized to violence. It's like, no, I can separate fiction from reality. I can go, whenever I watch like a face explode in a film, I'm like, oh, is that practical or CGI? How much blood did that, how much fake blood did that take? How's that effect done? Like I'm looking at it, in an analytical sense. Oh my god, like how did they do that? That looks incredible. I'm not like cheering on violence, like,
Show
yeah,
me more. Yeah.
let's kill some people, which I'm sure there are some people like that, but that's really not how I view it. I'm sure there are dangers to showing a certain level of violence, but I really don't think there was
Yeah.
anything in the film that was not appropriate for a 15-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really. Maybe this isn't the right thing to say, but I didn't really find it violent, really, compared to
No,
some of the other. I didn't find it. There's
I
not
hope,
one
yeah,
scene in
like,
my head that I found violent. Really, I'm sure you'd agree. Like, I think maybe Deadpool is the only thing is the closest comparison, where it's a colorful, violent superhero film, but even there, like, there's scenes in Deadpool where I can kind of think, oh yeah, maybe it's a bit violent because at the time Deadpool was the first to really do it. But with this film, like, there's a few, face explosions, those kind of things. But overall,
yeah,
is there anything that I can be offended by there? Not really.
yeah,
I think I think a 15 rating is absolutely fair. Like there's maybe a few F words and things like that, but there's nothing where I could say, oh, I showed my 14-year-old this and it's a 15, or whatever. I showed my 15-year-old this and I'm not happy. It's too violent. I don't think that's the case. I think it perfectly blends the humor with the goriness, with the action. And goriness is maybe a bit extreme to say. It's not gory really. It's very Zombieland-esque, and I don't think that's a
Yeah,
scary gory film whatsoever, dude.
yeah. I mean, if you're seeing like a pile of entrails on the floor, it's either a collection of pixels made on a computer,
Yeah,
or it's like
yeah,
or it's like corn syrup, and prosthetics, like So I mean, you just need to remove yourself from it a bit, and you know, violence on screen does not affect me
me
whatsoever.
neither.
That there are much scarier, much more intense things. Like if you're gonna make any film in 18, promising young woman, which from memory was a 15, like that, was absolutely harrowing, and that's the kind of film that I think should be an 18, not this.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because it's more like the realistic things that could actually happen to me that I find a bit scary, like like people killing themselves or something like that, like those kind of realistic human things where you can't like use CGI explosions to do, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
Those are the real scary aspects. Like Promising Young Woman's a realistic tale, um, about the human experience. Like it's scary. You know what I mean? And with this film, I personally didn't find anything, over the top or gory about it where I could be offended by it. That's not saying that other people don't have the right to be offended by it. It's just for me, I think it got the balance spot on, really.
yeah. I mean, really, when it comes to any time we're talking about a movie, we're not forcing our opinions on anyone.
Yeah,
We're
of
we're just
course.
sharing ours, and anyone is free to make up their own mind. But for us, maybe we've just had it sort of introduced to us at a young age. But I think it's because of our interest in the film industry that we have that sort of mental separation where it's really just
Hmm.
an interest in how things are done, rather than
Yeah, yeah,
being like, this could happen, so someone really could be uh you
yeah,
know you know so that could really happen to someone. Obviously someone could be shot. There are obviously much more you know otherworldly situations that happen throughout the film that were just inconceivable.
yeah.
So especially in that sort of section of the film, near the third act, not nothing that happens there could conceivably happen in the real world.
Yeah, and I think with this film as well, during the action scenes, you can tell that I think this film gets it right in the sense that you can tell when a scene is supposed to be played for laughs. There's one specific one involving like a resistance group. There, I'll not give too much away there, but there's a really sort of funny scene there. Um, I think with this film as well, it balances so many characters so well. Like it knows which ones to spend time on and it knows which ones to disregard, I think. And to be fair to the film, it takes characters that I didn't expect to be given so much runtime, a lot of runtime, and it doesn't waste time in any of the this is this character's name on the screen, what they're good at, what their yeah,
What they're
their
good at.
alias is. Like it's you know what I mean? It's fantastic. It doesn't waste time with that shit. And it really gets into the action scene. I can't really think of a film that gets into the action as quick as this one does. It really does it well. The pacing of the film, for the most part, I think is really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, because I mean, you obviously have the opening of The Dark Knight, but then it sort of pulls back, and you're sitting there with Bruce Wayne for a while before
Hmm.
Batman and Joker meet after the heist at the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible opening, but then you sort of slow down for the sake of
Yes.
building up to the story of the film. But here, the it starts off with a bang, and just kind of keeps accelerating, and
Certainly.
it couldn't be more different from the first film, when that took 40, 50 minutes just to tell you who these people are. And
Agreed.
from the sound of David Ayer's cut, it seems like it would be even more of that, and I don't know whether that's good or bad, because obviously, as I said, the worst part about the film is the midway city stuff. So maybe spending more time not there is the way to go. But from what I hear of his cut, all the scenes that were used as flashbacks essentially act as the first 30 or 40 minutes of the film. So I
Okay.
think the film would be told sort of linearly, starting with uh, the Joker and Harley's romance, which I mean,
Okay.
it's interesting, but I don't know if it'll work. I'm really curious to see the air cut. Would you be interested?
I would, I find sort of alternate, alternate scripts and those kind of things, and editing tales and off-screen dramas and trivia like that really interesting. The Snyder Cut's probably the biggest one I would say in terms of on alternate script and studio interferences and changing directors and all that meshed into one. Like that's the big one. And yeah, the David Ayer cut Suicide Squad, another one that springs to mind. And yeah, like even like cancelled movies I find quite interesting, like the storyboards for the fourth Raimi film, like those kind of things I find interesting. um but yeah, I would be interested in seeing that, because I think with all DC films, even if they're not good, they all have potential, and if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah, I think people are being quite dismissive of his cut of the film. They're saying it's kind of a ridiculous pursuit, but it's the same people that campaign for the Snyder cut, and obviously the circumstances aren't the same. Obviously Zack Snyder's treatment, during production, led to him being, led to him stepping away from the project. That and obviously personal tragedy.
Yeah,
But David Ayer did get to see out the film. But DC are obviously a very, very negative studio to work with. Evidently,
clearly, yeah.
so it seems that he obviously didn't get to enact his vision. So I mean, if if fan support can obviously help that come through, and it would be cathartic for him. I don't see why it's a ridiculous pursuit. If it
Agreed.
doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. DC have pretty much said we have no interest in releasing it. So I don't know that it necessarily will happen. I don't think it's a ridiculous thing to pursue, because it's I think it must be sad to see your creative vision sort of hacked apart. But in the way that Zack Snyder said he had the Snyder cut ready to go, and then that I don't think that was true necessarily. There was obviously copious amounts of visual effects, and then
Yeah.
bits and pieces that needed to be shot. So he didn't have the whole thing together, but he didn't need to do too much to
Yeah.
bring it all together. But if we're really talking about like David Ayer's vision, that would include the Mother Box and Steppenwolf. But to my knowledge, they never filmed any of that, so it would just be a cleaned up version of the movie we saw. It would still be Enchantress and her goop monsters. It wouldn't actually be anything hugely different. It would be the same story, slightly darker, less jokes, probably obviously better
Not too
edited,
different.
different music.
Yeah.
It's going to be largely the A to B is going to be the same, which I mean is what you should expect. But really, I'd wish they'd just let them do some reshoots, give them
Bite
some
the
change.
bullet.
And we
Yeah.
we we see the we see the film that he intended, and then that could be part of the Snyderverse.
Yeah, I agree. It worked for the Snyder Cut, so why not, I guess.
With this film, I feel like we've got off topic because of me about the actual film we're talking about. But this film itself, I thought going in, that I'd recognize its quality, but it would be a bit of a letdown, mostly because of the marketing. Because I think for whatever reason, it does seem to be James Gunn film specifically. Because I watch the Thor Ragnarok trailer, that was incredible. The Spider-Man Homecoming trailer, incredible. But then some of the Guardians of the Galaxy trailers, and then the trailers for this movie, like the jokes were just falling absolutely flat.
Agreed.
But then when you see them in context, they work really well. Except one, which we'll talk about. I'm not sure your opinion on it. But I really expected to go in and be a bit let down. But honestly, I thought for the most part it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree. I think, to drop a bombshell here, I think this is my favorite James Gunn film. I think this is
Hmm.
better than any of the two Guardians of the Galaxy films. Don't get me wrong, I think the Guardians of the Galaxy films have better characters, but the only reason I think that is because they've had multiple movies to expand them. I think if you give these characters multiple movies, they become equally, if not more likable and charismatic than and Star-Lord and Gamora and Drax and all those guys. So I feel like they've really hit a winner here, and I would definitely be intrigued to see this become a franchise of its own, or certainly multiple movies, because it's such a unique idea in the sense that you can have so many different characters here, so many different villains, so many different ideas, but still have that same integral, vibe that makes it so successful. So yeah, I think there should absolutely be a sequel. I know you mentioned there's a Peacemaker spin-off with John Cena on HBO, and I'm sure we'll review that.
Mhm.
But I think for me, yeah, I don't have much more to say in terms of non-spoiler, but I had a brilliant time. It's probably my favorite cinema experience of the year. Not my favorite movie of the year, but it's probably my second favorite of the year overall. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, we talked about the other day, what our favorite you know what our favorite cinema experience of the
Yeah,
year was, what our favorite film was. And I didn't say another round for either of them. But for me that is absolutely the answer. I don't know, for whatever reason that just escaped my brain, but yeah, that I'd say that's probably my favorite film of this year. You mentioned, reviewing TV, and we recently had a comment from Cash about reviewing the Netflix show Outer
someone
Banks.
said that to me in
And
work today as well. Someone
yeah,
said it. I was like, "What is it?"
I mean, I watched the first episode, like, but before Cash even mentioned it, I'd already seen the first episode, and the characters are so insufferable. I don't know that I can continue watching it, but it's essentially these sort of these teenagers on the outskirts of North Carolina. That there's this class divide between between these two sectors, and we're following kids from the poorer side, and his what the main character's dad goes missing, uh, and then they find secrets to a treasure that links to his disappearance. I got one episode in, like it seems dreadful, but if Cash likes it, we have to trust his taste, because I mean, he loves Kissing Booth, Riverdale, so I mean,
Yeah,
he's a man of taste. So
clearly.
I'm gonna give it a go, and we can maybe do
Yeah,
like a
because
5 minute review of it, but before we talk about some films on an episode or something.
a couple of people have said to me in work about reviewing it, and I was none the wiser of what it was. I thought it was quite an old TV show, but maybe I'm getting it
No, no,
confused with something else. Is it maybe is it a recent release? This year?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's from 2020, and then the second season's coming out in a few weeks, I believe. I think it'd be quite uncharacteristic for us to do a video for it itself. So if we maybe snuck it in at the beginning of another episode.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that. We could do like one of those news roundups we do sometimes, and maybe put it in there. I guess I don't know, something like that. But yeah, man, I don't have any more non-spoiler notes. Anything from you?
No, Matthew, other than the
Sweet.
question, massive hit or piece of shit.
Well, it's obvious, man. It's a massive hit for sure. I do think if I were just gonna say one thing negative about the film, I'd say I think there's a few characters that are absolutely wasted here, in the sense that big actors that I think have real good potential and I know you're good actors, but they just don't have enough to do, or they just aren't utilized right. And I think maybe another thing is the villain plot is a bit weak in terms of not the villain itself, but just the villain in terms of the build up there is maybe not where I
Yeah,
would have liked it to be. But that being said, I absolutely had a blast with this. It's a real popcorn film, but still really fantastic. It's this very Zombieland-esque sort of film where it's got great rewatchability to it, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a massive hit, man. One of the best films of the year for sure. What about you, dude? Dude?
yeah, absolutely, massive hit as well for me. I hope that we can get all our thoughts out before my phone inevitably dies, because as the viewers won't know, pretty much every time we record, my phone runs out of battery, because
We can come
it
back
just
and we
just
can do
despises the idea of us completing a review, apparently.
we can do the spoiler, later on or on a different day or something, because we've the non-spoiler has been long as well, so I'm sure the spoiler would be long. So just
We
whatever
we,
works
we,
for
we,
you,
we,
mate.
we can power through and see how far we get.
Yeah, for sure. Are you good if I open the floor for spoilers then, mate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Wait, well, I'll start off with what I said there at the end, about the villain presence. Now, I really thought that the film made a big mistake with the whole sort of, weird military coup sort of thing going on there. I thought it was really, really just boring and dull and confusing. Like there were so many characters who I just didn't know the names of, who like government officials that just, I think, just wasted time. Whereas I think more time could have been put into characters like the Thinker or someone like that. You know what I mean? It's a big mistake for me to have that, just have a the villain be, the government or whatever. I didn't like that
Mm.
really.
Initially I was thinking that, but then, I think, it pays off when it then has the reveal that it was, mostly the US government who were
Yeah,
responsible
that's
for
interesting.
Project
Yeah.
Starfish. So I do think that, juxtaposition where you had, the film was presenting this government regime as evil, but then it was, the US all along. And, it's sort of it's a scary portrayal of a
Yeah.
government, like seeing what, a government is capable of.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't, to our knowledge, we don't have, alien technology that's being harnessed. But, there are, big superpowers that, governments, not specifically America, but, governments are responsible for that, are scary.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
there are definitely, things that are covered up, by governments. We're not going to launch into any conspiracy theories, I'm sure, but, there are obviously things that, aren't public knowledge that, would I assume terrify people.
Yeah.
And, it's scary to see how far the government would go to cover those things up.
Yeah, for
Even,
sure.
Amanda Waller, clearly, had a close friend in Rick Flag, but, sort of,
Sold him down
allowing
the
him to be
river.
killed by Peacemaker is, uh, you know, it shows, how much, her job is her life, and, everything is about the mission, and, everything is about, the deniability of the government. But, one thing that I think the movie made a mistake of was, not giving her, a moment to mourn Rick Flag. I think, that there should have been a moment where we cut to her, and, you sort of saw the regret in her face, where she was like, yeah, the mission was completed, but I lost a friend.
Yeah,
I would have liked that. I
agreed.
think, would have showed, a sliver of humanity to the character.
Absolutely, absolutely, mate. To be honest, I actually think that's that ending sort of Rick Flag scene with his battle against Peacemaker was one of the best in the film, just because like it's a scene where he's not forced to tell jokes or anything. It's an actual like really sort of integral scene of the movie that I felt it could have pulled in your heartstrings a little bit more, like you said, if it had Amanda Waller grieving a little bit, because throughout the film she sort of has an absence of humanity, which I get, that's her character. Like she's supposed to be this sort of stern faced, the mission comes first kind of character, and I do get that. But I just thought the film did a good job in showing her true colors, like for who she is. And she's not a nice character, you know what I mean? She's not supposed to be a nice character. She's not supposed to be the good guy. She's not supposed to be like the Nick Fury who assembles all the heroes together. Like that's not her role whatsoever. So I thought, yeah, I agree with you completely, mate. I kind of feel like, having Peacemaker be that kind of secondary villain presence at the end there was really smart as well. Like he kind of is cut from the same cloth as Amanda Waller in that sense. As the mission comes first, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, he was definitely the perfect choice plot wise to be the one that was sort of following her direct orders. So yeah, that did, it absolutely made sense within the context of the movie. The three big deaths in the film, I would say, are Captain Boomerang, or, the three of note, because, I don't think we even need to bother. Yes, Savant gets killed, obviously. Surprisingly, Mongal doesn't make a huge appearance.
Yeah,
But, the three big deaths are Captain Boomerang, Rick Flag, Polka Dot Man, and I think you can pretty much say that none of those were surprising. But, for me, Captain Boomerang and Rick Flag, you know, they frustrated and they upset me. I don't think they need to kill quite so many people, or quite so many people of, that status to make a point. You need to kill, you know, a big name or two, I would say, for, to make an impact. I would say, to prove that this truly is the Suicide Squad. But like, did they really need to kill that many people? Because, now really the only people left on the board that were established by David Ayer are, Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. So the rest of the characters have just been entirely swept off the board. And I'm just really upset, because I really learned to love Rick Flag in this film, and I already loved Captain Boomerang, and I feel like one was definitely enough.
Do you think it was intentional? James Gunn kind of saying, "This is my franchise, bitch." You know what I mean? Like, see you later.
I mean, I don't want to suggest any kind of agenda, but I think Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, she's incredibly liked by fans. She's incredibly marketable, and that's really all these movies are. They're a money making machine. There is obviously more heart and soul in this film than there is in most of the DC films.
Mm.
But in the end, these big budget, big production
Yeah,
studio films are about making money, and they they
yeah,
they bring in what's marketable. And I'd say we're sort of on the fringe of actually caring about like characters like Captain Boomerang. So I mean, they were probably just disposing of big names that not that many people cared about. But I just happened to care about it. So I'm sure it was, and I'm sure it was just a coincidence. But it did upset me because obviously they give Rick Flag this huge arc, and they give him a lot of screen time in this film, so that his death is actually poignant. So I think if it was an issue of them wanting to get rid of these characters, I think they would have
yeah.
dispatched him earlier on.
Yeah, I kind of thought by killing off so many characters that were marketed so heavily in the film so early on, like, like Captain Boomerang, Weasel especially was marketed quite a lot. We'll get to him later, but do you know what I mean? Like by killing so many people off in that first sort of action scene, that really set the tone of the film for me. And like a lot of people I've been talking to and work about it, I've sort of said, "Oh, there's so many deaths here," and it lives up to its title. You know what I mean? There's a lot of deaths there. Um, and yeah, I kind of feel like for the most part the film does the right decision in killing off characters who aren't that interesting anyway. Which is that's maybe a bit harsh, but I kind of felt like for me it got the core squad at the end right. Bloodsport, Harley Quinn, Rick Flag, Ratcatcher, and Polka Dot Man, and I don't know, there's a few others in there. I'm sure I've missed out, but that's for the most part. I think they did well in establishing the main characters of the film here. Despite there being quite a bizarre sort of savant point of view early on, which we thought was a bit strange. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because Micah Rooker and James Gunn have previously worked together. I'm not too sure. But I really thought that that he was going to be an important character, but yeah, he wasn't.
I mean, to be fair, I was glad he wasn't, because he seemed my immediate instinct was, this is a dull character. Please don't spend too much time with him, which is why I was sort of taken aback by the sort of first person perspective that we opened the film on. I was like, really, Savant?
Yeah,
And then thankfully he was dead within 10 minutes. So I was pretty
fantastic.
happy.
Yeah,
I'm just a little disappointed that we're never going to get to see Captain Boomerang properly face off against the Flash. We obviously got a very brief interaction in the original Suicide Squad film, where the character does what he says in the original Justice League, pushes people and runs away. So that's pretty much the extent of the interaction that we've seen so far, and unfortunately that seems to be all that we're going to get.
yeah. I'm holding out maybe for the Flash movie if they sort of bring back the rogues and stuff like that. If they could potentially do a time travel element there or show a flashback or something, I think that would be interesting because it's such a corny character, but I actually really find him really interesting. I don't know, he's my favorite member of the Rogues Gallery. Like him and Rare Master, I really like. So I don't know, he's one of those goofy characters I just have a soft spot for. But but yeah, like I think here, yeah, the one character that springs to mind that is completely wasted is the Thinker. He's kind of marketed as part of the Suicide Squad, but he's kind of a means to an end in terms of trying to figure out what's going on here with the Project Starfish. So obviously he's kind of the archetype behind that project. So yeah, he doesn't really have any showcase of his abilities here whatsoever. Um, to be honest, I think that's one thing that every other character does well. It's just that he just doesn't get enough screen time to show it. So it's a pity because Peter Capaldi, I quite enjoy as in certain episodes I've seen of him in Doctor Who. I haven't seen a lot of his series, but I think he seems a very talented actor. So it's a shame that he doesn't have much to do here.
Yeah, it is a shame, and he's another one that's sort of dispatched without further mention. But when it comes to Polka Dot Man, you know they obviously attempt to get us to care about the character. I think one of the best visual gags of the
His
film
mom,
is
yeah,
seeing all the enemies as his mother. I do think that was quite funny, especially when she's massive as Starro.
yeah,
I quite like
yeah,
that.
agreed.
I just didn't care about the character, and when he died, I was like, okay, who cares? But also it was bizarre because I think James Gunn cares about him, and he wanted us to care about him, but then the film doesn't seem to care about him because he is so callously dispatched without kind of any you know mourning after,
Yeah,
or comedy even involved. He's just crushed to death. After this sort of joyous display. So I mean, it didn't really come across like the film was trying to.
yeah, I
Maybe the film
agree.
was trying to be funny. I don't know, but it also wasn't sad. I think if they'd really committed to one, like either giving him a hilarious death or giving him a incredibly poignant, sad death, I think that would have been fine. But it was just, really, really, really blasé.
Yeah, and on the subject of but funny deaths, there's a really my favorite scene of the film is when Bloodsport and the gang sort of accidentally slaughter the resistance group. And
Yeah,
I thought it was really predictable because that's exactly what I thought was going to happen because they sort of make the obvious note of the resistance group, or at the time the sort of villain group, as they kind of suggest, like they never actually attack or fight back. It's a bit sort of weird. So that's why I kind of felt something was off here, and they did go for that gag, which I thought was I thought that's what they were going for, but I still thought the delivery was actually really good. I thought it was a really fun, it was a real stand. I got a few laughs in the cinema, I think, as well at the time.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was.
Obviously, at a moral standpoint for the characters, horrendous.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Horrendous. Obviously, killing any innocent people, awful. But it was absolutely the comedic delivery. I mean, that shouldn't be funny because obviously it is undoubtedly
It's murder.
horrendous.
Yeah,
It's murder, and it's murder of innocent people, and
yeah.
it's
It's the worst
murder of
kind of
innocent
murder.
people in a country that they shouldn't even be in. Because they're you know infiltrating this country, without
Yeah.
really just cause.
Hmm.
The Suicide Squad should not be the ones dispatched to a foreign nation. But it is just the comedic delivery that makes that effective.
Yeah, agreed. I absolutely agree. Um, yeah, I mean, I think biggest credit I can give this film is that it somehow makes a giant starfish work. Now, I get that it's maybe a bit of a juxtaposition to have this sort of realistic sort of government villain presence of this military coup going on, and then have a huge starfish be the villain. It's just that I really liked Starro from a couple of the Justice League cartoons. I kind of really like the idea of I'm not sure whether they call it mind control, or whether the people, as soon as the little starfish are attached to their heads, is that them just completely dead or brain dead. I'm not too sure. That's kind of how they suggest in this film, because like Bloodsport has no qualms with just slaughtering these people. Like, to be honest with you, it's
Yeah,
brutal.
they
You
yeah
know what I mean?
they're mindless drones, but once they've been taken over, they are they say that their
It's funny.
corpses under there.
It's funny because I kind of thought they were going to go down the element of having one of the Suicide Squad be possessed or some. And maybe possessed is not really the right word, but I thought that's where they were going to go with, because they kind of have it that Bloodsport's mask breaks off, and you kind of think, okay, that's going to have a bigger part to play, but it doesn't. Is that where you thought it was going to go, or what were you
it,
thinking?
it never crossed my mind, but thinking of the fact that I really don't care about Bloodsport enough to see him again, that would have been I think a much better ending for that character. If you have that dramatic scene where he's has his back to the camera, and then he turns around and his face is covered, and one of them has to kill him, like that would be an incredible moment, and I think that's maybe a missed opportunity.
Yeah, potentially. What did you think of Starro in the film then? Because it's probably the most bizarre villain on screen I think I've ever seen in terms of
Yeah,
visually. It's a huge starfish with one eye. It's weird.
yeah.
It works.
You've sort of criticized the sort of the coup plot, but as you said, even with a giant starfish that doesn't speak, that obviously it can be your principal villain, but it can't be the only presence,
Yes.
because then
Yeah. Agreed.
who's behind that, who can speak for him? How do we understand what's even happening here? how does a general audience connect with this, in any, in any way, shape, or form. And that is by having supplementary villains like Thinker. So the fact that he sort of took a bit of a backseat and it was maybe a bit weak. There's some sense to that in that
Yeah.
Starro still is the principal villain, but I think it is one of the most masterful CGI, like visual
Oh, it's
CGI
amazing. That's fantastic.
adaptations ever. I think it's one of the most ambitious characters to be in any film because it should not work on any level. But it,
It
to me,
does.
it
Yeah.
completely worked. The fact that it's these characters trying to take this character down, I thought would not work in any way. Watching the 2016 version where they're just trying to like beat up a witch for 15 minutes, like it makes zero sense. When this witch can wipe people out of existence. Why is she allowing herself to be like beaten up like
Yeah.
Pennywise at the end of it? Like it made no sense.
Exactly.
But here, especially with the solution with the rats, it was just incredibly well thought out. I was like, really, whenever I was watching, I was like, really, like that's your solution, rats. I thought it was going to be maybe a bit more of a team effort, but then you have to realize these are humans. That there's only so much they can do. So to have who turned out to be the heart of the film,
Yeah.
Ratcatcher 2 be the one responsible for the takedown, worked entirely. It is just one of the most ambitious things I've ever seen in a film, really. And James Gunn obviously is all about ambition. Everything about the Guardians of the Galaxy films are ambitious, visually and storytelling wise. So I mean, it's no surprise, but it's just I think he's absolutely one-upped himself.
Yeah, Callum, I agree because I'd had this thought during this film, and I kind of thought because kind of looking at my watch, I was like, okay, I'm not aware that this film has a super long run time. I think I was a bit conscious of the time left, and there was still a lot to resolve, and I'd kind of thought to myself, maybe they're not going to resolve things here. Maybe this Starro um villain is just going to be too much for them, and they'll not win. So I kind of thought, okay, maybe they're going to sort of that's how they're going to bring everything all together for a future film where they have to get other people to help out. So I kind of thought that we're maybe gonna have them lose here and have a second film or maybe a bigger film involving some of the Justice League. I thought that's what they were going for because by
Oh
nature of
yeah,
it, Starro's a Justice League villain, I guess.
yeah.
So I kind of thought, that's where they're going. But I was satisfied that by the conclusion of the film, I think it worked just as well as I thought in my head. So yeah, man, I don't have much more to say on the film in terms of spoilers. But one thing I will say is, yeah, super ambitious villain, but um, it's remarkable that a giant starfish makes a witch and her brother look ridiculous in the previous film. It's amazing. Well done to James Gunn. Like, to be fair, he smashed it.
Yeah. We talked about the jokes and the fact that they were largely successful in this film. One that I didn't enjoy was Peacemaker, saying how many dicks he would eat off a beach or whatever,
Yeah.
for the sake of peace. I thought it just didn't. I thought it just fell flat a bit. I have to give credit to John Cena though. Of the three performances I've seen him in, Fred the movie, Fast and Furious 9, and this film, this definitely is strongest out of the three. Not tough competition, let's be honest, but it is absolutely is. I think his strongest acting performance that I've seen.
I
I
agree.
have yet to see Bumblebee. He may be very, very good there. But I really think the jokes for the most part came across very well. I think all the cast are incredibly talented when it comes to comedic delivery. But, there were a few instances where, like most MCU movies, they undercut an emotional moment for the sake of a joke.
Mm.
Like for example, Ant-Man, where Hank Pym's telling his daughter Hope about the tragic backstory of why her mother never came home, and then Scott just interrupts awkwardly to tell them what a beautiful moment they're having. Like, and here, we get a moment similar to that, when Javelin's dying, and and then Harley interrupts with this, with his sort of attempt at comedy, and I was just a bit saddened by it, because I think,
Yeah.
they obviously had an immediate connection. I think, she could have just had this sort of emotional cry, not a literal cry, but like, why has this happened, rather than slap him on the face and say, finish your sentence. You know,
Yeah.
I just didn't like how that played out because I think it was for a moment so poignant and so effective, and it made me care about a character we've seen for 30 seconds from an actor that I've seen in other things and not appreciated before. Here I really liked him. I really liked the opening scene, and that just sort of completely undercut it for me.
Yeah, it's a movie trope that really frustrates me. Um, to be honest with you, sort of undercutting an emotional scene with humor. I think it can work, but I think it's something that's it's more seems to be in my head more prevalent in comic book films. Maybe that's because those are the films I watch the most or pay most attention to. But yeah,
No,
when you
I think it is those like sort of studio films where they've sort of met in a boardroom and they've decided what's funny.
yeah, yeah, I agree. It's one of the examples where it's exactly that. It's what a group of people who shouldn't really be writing that kind of scene find funny have decided to include. It's not really my sense of humor. I don't really like that trope, to be honest with you. I kind of find it's sort of, yeah, I think if it's overused too much, luckily it's not here, but I think if it's overused, it kind of puts the seed of doubt in my head. If you're not going to take the film seriously, like why should I take the film seriously? You know what I mean? So luckily I think James Gunn strikes a balance really, really well where that's not a problem, but it certainly becomes more of a prevalent issue and a lot of the Marvel movies. Thor Ragnarok's a fantastic movie. I think there is a lack of emotion there for me, where I think it could have pulled on the heartstrings a bit more. Not that I want to be crying, every second of that film, but that's just an example in my head that springs to mind where I kind of feel like there's elements of emotion missing.
Yeah, there's two sides to Harley Quinn. There's obviously the mentally ill side, but there's also the psychiatrist. And I feel like you know because we see her sort of psychoanalyzing people in the first film, and we obviously see that she's an intelligent person.
Yeah.
She's very aware of other people, and potential mental problems that they have. So you would think she'd be emotionally intelligent enough to like read the moment. And I think a lot of her intelligence was sort of sacrificed for the sake of a joke in this film a
Yeah, I
bit.
agree. I agree. Yeah, definitely. It's prevalent for me as well.
Because I mean, in every adaptation of the character, I think her intelligence always cuts through, and I feel like that wasn't as much here. I don't think she doesn't have a huge amount to do. I think she's very likable in the film. And she's learned from the red flags that the Joker gave her. That's sort of a speech that she gives within the film. But I do think when you're talking about her characterization, I do feel like her intelligence was somewhat
Completely. Yeah.
sacrificed.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, man.
Would it be all right if I charge my phone for about 10 minutes?
Of course, mate. No.
So something that we find out about Bloodsport within this film that actually carries over from the comics is that he's in prison because he had shot Superman with a kryptonite bullet that sent him into the ICU. And we curiously, obviously we're not going to see that play out because Henry Cavill, that's sort of a messy situation there at DC contractually. Uh, I mean, it would have been a very cool scene to see. But I think we all knew that after hearing that in the trailer, we weren't exactly going to see it. But
Yeah.
I mean, a reason would have been nice. Presumably, he was doing it for money. But you would think, being an elite assassin who seemingly never misses, he'd maybe go for the head. If he's making it out of there alive, he's maybe not the top tier assassin that you're billing him to be. I mean, if that's your pitch as to why he should be on the Suicide Squad, that's very unimpressive. He had a gun that had a kryptonite bullet in it. It didn't kill Superman. Like that's like the worst pitch for a person for the team, surely.
I quite like the way the film pokes fun at the similarities between Bloodsport and Peacemaker. I think it would have been funny if it sort of did that more with the comparisons to Deadshot as well. And I think there's definitely room for a potential sort of a team up there between Idris Elba and Will Smith. I would like to see that for sure, because they kind of have that. Obviously the similarities obvious, but I think the Idris Elba and John Cena also have very good chemistry in the sense that there's a bit of back and forth between the characters. Obviously, they're very similar in the sense that they're both sort of mercenaries or along those kind of lines where using guns, those kind of things. But yeah, I think I would have even liked to see the film sort of show a flashback, just not show Henry Cavill's face, similar to how like Shazam did it with Superman, just not have his face be in the shot, but just show it that way. I think that would have been quite funny. Like have that be a recurring gag in the DCEU where like you see Superman but you don't see his face. I think that would have been quite unique. It'd be very annoying after a while, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's when you hear something like that, you kind of want to see it, don't you? So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I suppose that's funny if you put him into literally every DC film. If there's a Plastic Man, or
Yeah.
you know Vixen or something. Like an incredibly not those characters necessarily, but if there's an incredibly obscure character and for some reason Superman shows up, but it's like that. I think that would add a level of comedy to it that I'd appreciate. You know, in sort of an approach to the wrap up of the review, we've mentioned Peacemaker, his TV show, and this character I would say is one that didn't make the impact that I expected him to.
Okay.
I perfectly appreciated this character. I liked him to the same degree I liked Bloodsport, Polka Dot Man. Slightly edged out by Ratcatcher 2. But it's just bizarre to me that that's the character they chose to give a TV show to. I mean, obviously, I trust James Gunn, so that's where my curiosity still lies. But I just thought it was an interesting choice and not one that I would expect off the back of having actually seen the film.
Yeah, in a classic sort of Matthew moment, I was unaware if he was getting his TV show until you had told me. Is it to be, made by James Gunn or at least him having a producer role?
It's already done. It's been filmed already. It's
Okay.
coming out in January 2022. It was written very quickly. Like the production schedule was insanely fast. The time between writing it and completing filming was you know uh incredibly quick.
Hmm.
To my knowledge, James Gunn wrote all of it. I'm not sure whether he directed it.
Okay.
Uh,
That's cool.
that's just to my knowledge. I'm not
Sounds
100%.
promising then.
He seems heavily involved.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, I thought John Cena, as you said, yeah, I think this is probably the best I've seen him in. Um, but if I had, yeah, it's a difficult one because he definitely wasn't my favorite character in the movie. And I think compared to other characters, his lines maybe fall flat the most. And I get, John Cena, he's not an actor by trade compared to some of the other guys, but um, I still think there's a while to go before you can sort of have him and Dwayne Johnson being the sort of same category for their movie experience in terms of Dwayne Johnson's had years ahead of Johnson in movies, and I'm not saying that they're the same level acting wise. I think from what I've seen, I would say they're reasonably in that ballpark. I think Dwayne Johnson's probably a bit more comfortable on camera, I would say, but yeah, it's not as if like it's light and day. Sorry, it's night and day for me. But yeah, I think I do think people are definitely always going to make that comparison. Even Dave Bautista is in that conversation as well. He's becoming very really popular now. So we've talked before a lot about like wrestlers going into acting, UFC stars going into acting and stuff. So it's really common now. Um, and I think John Cena has done very well for himself, to be fair. It's just, yeah, I would agree. I think he maybe didn't hit the heights that I wanted him to in this film. I think this film just done enough to sort of kickstart that maybe career. But yeah, he wasn't my favorite. Wasn't my favorite.
Did you have anything further on the film, Matthew?
Yeah, no, I didn't, bro. I didn't. I suppose if we were gonna give it a rating out of 10, as we sometimes do, for me personally, it's got to be like a 9. It's I really really enjoyed this one. Probably, it's weird because I really do like Wonder Woman 1984, despite how like silly it is in some regards. Um, it's hard to compare this because this film feels like nothing I've ever seen before. In that sense, it's so unique, it's so outrageous, but it works so well. I think an argument could be made for this could be the best DCU film. I think the DCU's had a really good, solid slate. Some better than others, but this one's right up there, bro. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. One of the best films of the year, for sure. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say that this for me also one of the best films of the year. Probably number two after another round.
Okay.
So far, I think if Spider-Man Far From Home releases this year, sorry, No Way Home, uh, I'd like to think it's gonna be right up there. I mean, imagine if Spider-Man No Way Home does everything the people think it will,
And
but
it's still shit.
just a terrible film. Because like I think we were all
Yeah.
worried about Thor Ragnarok because they were doing Ragnarok, they were doing Doctor Strange, they were doing Hela, and they were doing Surtur,
Hulk.
and they were doing Planet Hulk, and you were just like, well, this sounds insane. And then you heard that the runtime wasn't 3 hours, and you're like, well, this is how
Yeah.
could this be good? And it is because like the editing, like it moves at a clip. Like you don't stay in one place for long, and Planet Hulk is sort of watered down, but to an acceptable level where you don't feel like you've missed out.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a cheapened version of it. It just feels abridged. So it completely works somehow. But Spider-Man No Way Home with everything that it looks to have. Of course, I don't want to get my expectations too high and get everything wrong.
We've done a
But I
whole
mean,
podcast on it, haven't we? Like
yeah.
we were really hyped for that one.
But if they're trying to like cram all that into 2 hours, like, it could just be shit. You know,
It could be.
I hope it's not, but
I
but
have
it
faith.
may well be. Yeah, we'll have to see. But for this film, I concur with the nine. I think visually spectacular. It has one of my favorite color palettes in a film. The gore I think was just at the right level. Of
Yeah, definitely.
realism balanced with otherworldliness. And the design of Star, the realization from the comics was incredible, and having a giant non-verbal starfish as the principal villain of your film was just incredibly ambitious, and the fact that it works is really commendable. So I concur with the 9 out of 10, and I'd say great film.
Yeah, I'd advise anyone watching to definitely go see it. I think it's a real marvel of modern day cinema, to be honest. I think it's fantastic, and yeah, as we're saying, you can go see it with whoever, mates, family, partner, anything. It's for everyone, despite the violence and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that wraps up another review, another podcast on the channel. Thanks for today, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed. If you've seen the Suicide Squad, let us know in the comments. We'll always be there reacting. Glad to see a few more comments recently. It's always nice. And yeah, stay tuned as well for loads of content coming up on the channel as well. We're gonna be, as I say, we're gonna be doing our 100th special, or part 3 of that. So yeah, it's gonna be an exciting few months in the podcast. So yeah, hope you guys are all well. Your family and friends are keeping well too. Take care, and we'll see you later. See ya.
Bye bye.